3 seconds. That is all it takes to either build feline trust or shatter it completely. Most cat owners have never heard of the 3-second window, and that ignorance is quietly costing them the bond they desperately want. In this video, you will discover the exact neurological sequence happening inside your cat's brain the moment you reach toward them, and how freezing a single gesture can rewire their emotional response to you forever. Stay until the end. There is a behavioral test waiting that will reveal exactly where you and your companion stand right now. Here is something most people are too proud to admit. You have been doing everything right on the surface, and it still is not working. The articles, the treat training, the slow movements, the soft voice, and your cat still flinches when your hand comes close. That gap you feel is real. But the reason behind it is not what you think. Most content will tell you that patience is the answer. Give it time, let them adjust. And while patience matters, it is only half the equation, because a predator stalking prey is also patient. What your cat's nervous system is actually measuring is not how long you wait. It is what you do in the specific moment when their evaluation of you is actively running. Patience without that biological awareness registers to them not as safety, but as a threat holding still before it moves. The movement pattern that breaks trust more than any other is the reaching hand. Picture your cat settled on the couch, finally relaxed, eyes soft and half closed. You feel the warmth of that moment and lean forward. Your hand travels through the air toward their face, and before your fingers even get close, something shifts. A tightening, a 1 centimeter withdrawal of the head, sometimes a full departure. You feel it like a door closing. But what actually happened inside their brain in those 2 seconds was a biological process that your movement cut short before it could finish. A 2025 study on behavioral responses of domestic cats to human odor confirmed that cats use olfactory discrimination as their primary tool for identifying whether a human is safe. Smell is the lead sense here. Ahead of visual recognition, ahead of sound familiarity, and smell, as we are about to get into, requires uninterrupted time to complete its verdict. Your hand arrived before the jury was done deliberating. Every time you have felt shut out by your cat, consider the possibility that you were not rejected. You were interrupted. Stop reaching first. That single shift will do more for your relationship than months of any other technique. Before we go deeper into the neuroscience, tell us in the comments, what is your cat's name and how old are they? Because what you are about to learn plays out very differently in a 6-month-old kitten versus a 7-year-old rescue. Drop their name and age below. Let us go inside the brain. Not as a metaphor, as a literal map of what is happening the moment your hand moves through the air. The first sensory system to fire when something approaches a cat is vision, and the feline visual system carries a specific evolutionary inheritance that most owners never account for. Cats are both predator and prey, a dual identity encoded structurally in their neurology rather than simply expressed as a behavioral tendency. Deep in the brainstem, a cluster of neurons called the reticular formation monitors incoming stimuli for 2 specific variables, speed and trajectory. Research on startle reflex pathways has identified that giant neurons in the nucleus reticularis pontis caudalis are primarily responsible for triggering the feline startle response, firing in milliseconds, well ahead of conscious processing, and tuned specifically to detect fast-approaching objects along the threat axis. Your hand, traveling toward their face, is moving directly along that axis. This is the predatory startle reflex. 40 million years of evolutionary survival coding do not pause to consider your affection. The ancient brain sees approach velocity, and it responds. End of deliberation. But here is what changes everything. If the movement stops, a second and far more sophisticated system activates. The vomeronasal organ, Jacobson's organ, sits in the roof of the mouth and runs a direct neural line to the limbic system, the brain's emotional processing core. Research published in behavioral neuroscience literature describes its sensory epithelium as the primary receptor pathway for pheromone detection in cats, channeling chemical information directly into the regions governing fear, affiliation, and social bonding. This organ goes far beyond confirming your identity. It reads your physiological state, your cortisol levels, the signature of recent anxiety, the chemistry of calm. The process is closer to chemical analysis than to anything we would recognize as smelling something. Your body is broadcasting a signal, and Jacobson's organ is decoding the full transmission. That decoding takes time. The olfactory processing delay, the window between first molecular contact and the limbic system's final verdict, runs between 2 and 4 seconds of unbroken stillness. Move inside that window, and you do not just startle them. You become an unresolved threat, a file the brain flags as dangerous because the evaluation never completed. A 2025 study in applied animal behavior science found measurable oxytocin release correlating directly with cats' approach hovering behavior during owner interactions, meaning the trust chemistry only activates when the cat chooses to close the distance on their own schedule without being rushed. Like the video if any of this has already shifted how you see those moments with your companion. So what happens when you keep pushing forward, even gently, even with love driving every inch of that movement? The damage is quieter than you might expect. Cats do not dramatically shut down overnight. What happens instead is gradual and almost invisible. The olfactory evaluation sequence gets interrupted so many times that the animal eventually stops initiating it. They stop extending their nose toward your hand, stop crossing the room to investigate, and from the outside this looks like indifference, a cat who has simply decided they are not a people animal. But what the behavior is actually reflecting is something closer to learned futility. The evaluation always gets cut short anyway, so there is no point beginning it. Behavioral scientist John Bradshaw, whose 3 decades of research into cat social cognition produced the landmark work Cat Sense, made a point that tends to get lost in popular cat content. Domestic cats did not evolve primarily as social animals the way dogs did, and their affiliative behavior, choosing closeness, choosing contact, choosing to be near you, is genuinely voluntary in a way that most canine bonding is not. That voluntary quality cannot be bypassed through persistence. It has to be earned through the right conditions. In feline biology, those conditions begin with stillness. In feral cat colonies, when 2 individuals are negotiating whether they are safe with each other, one will stop moving entirely and lower its body profile. This freeze posture appears across dozens of mammalian species during initial affiliative contact and functions as a biological signal of non-predatory intent, a way of saying, in the language the nervous system actually understands, I am not closing distance on you. Whatever happens next is your choice. When you extend your hand toward your cat and then go completely still, you are transmitting the oldest trust signal in their behavioral vocabulary. That is the foundation of the statue protocol, a behavioral principle borrowed directly from how cats negotiate safety with each other. The rule is deceptively simple. Offer your presence and let them close the remaining distance. The centimeter they choose to cross toward you carries more neurological weight than every centimeter you have ever moved toward them. Their approach means the olfactory evaluation ran its full course. The verdict came back clear. That is biological affiliation, the closest thing the feline nervous system has to a declaration of trust. Here is what the statue protocol actually looks like when you run it in your living room today. You sit on the floor. Your cat walks in. Instead of orienting toward them, calling their name, or extending your arm as an invitation, you do nothing. Your hand rests loosely on your knee, knuckles angled upward, fingers relaxed. You breathe at a normal rate. Your gaze drifts slightly to the side, not because you are ignoring them, but because sustained, direct eye contact in feline communication functions as a low-level dominance assertion, exactly the kind of signal that works against everything you are trying to build. Your cat stops somewhere across the room. They look at you. Maybe they take one step closer and pause again, recalibrating. And then, if the stillness holds, something shifts. Their head lowers slightly and their nose extends toward your hand. That nose extension is the first phase of the affiliative consent micro-expression, the olfactory request. They are not greeting you yet. They are asking permission to evaluate. Research on free-ranging cat colony behavior documented that this nose-touch-to-contact sequence appears specifically under conditions of social safety rather than social pressure. The second phase, if you stay still through the full processing window, is chin or cheek contact, the deposit of sebaceous gland secretions that marks an object or individual as belonging to the cat's safe social world. In their language, that contact means, "You are mine, and I am choosing that." Now the 1 centimeter rule, because this is where so many people lose the moment right at the finish line. As the cat approaches and contact becomes imminent, the instinct is to lean forward, close the last bit of distance, meet them halfway. Even a single centimeter of forward movement during that final approach registers as closing velocity to the visual cortex and reignites the alert pathway, undoing the chemical trust signal the vomeronasal organ just finished building. Lean back instead. Let their momentum carry them all the way. When contact happens on their terms, cortisol drops and oxytocin rises, and the brain files the encounter as a connection that was freely chosen rather than an intrusion that was endured. The difference between those two outcomes is not about how much you love your cat. It is entirely about the direction of that last centimeter. You have carried something genuinely different through this video. Not a list of tips, but a shift in how you understand what is happening between you and your companion at the neurological level. When you stop reaching and start offering, when you trade the instinct to close distance for the discipline of holding space, you become something the feline nervous system registers in a very specific biological way: a safe presence, a member of the inner circle, the kind of human whose stillness the limbic system has already cleared and filed as family. All of the warmth, closeness, and connection you have been trying to build through action was always waiting on the other side of a different choice. The choice to stay still and let them arrive. Reinforce this every single day, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet accumulation of honored moments. Every time you hold still and let them come to you, that interaction gets filed as evidence. Cats carry this evidence forward. Research using the secure base test found that cats display the same proximity maintenance and affiliative signaling that human children show with trusted caregivers, and these behaviors intensify specifically after moments of brief uncertainty followed by confirmed safety. Every still moment you offer is confirmation. Over weeks and months, that confirmation becomes the architecture of something that no training shortcut can replicate. If this changed how you see your companion today, subscribe to Mindful Felines, behavioral science translated into the moments that actually matter, every single week. Now for the behavioral test. Find a quiet moment today when your cat is calm and alert. Sit on the floor within their sight line. Do not call them over. Do not reach out. Simply rest one hand to the side, knuckles up, at roughly their nose height, and go completely still. Count to 3 in your mind, then to 5. Give it 10 if they seem curious but cautious. Watch what they do. If they approach and make nose contact with your hand, you just witnessed the olfactory consent sequence completing in real time. The full 2 to 4 second window honored, the verdict delivered, the trust confirmed. If they do not approach, that result is equally valuable. It tells you that more accumulated still moments are needed before the evaluation feels safe enough to run. Neither outcome is failure. Both are honest information about where the relationship is right now and exactly what it needs next. Whatever they do in that moment, the choice you made to stay still was an act of love delivered in the only language their biology can actually receive. That is the bond. Not the moment you touched them, but the moment you chose to wait until touching was their idea. Thank you for being here. Your cat is lucky to have someone who cares enough to learn their language.